So then on this note sheet, hopefully, again, getting through the whole thing before the end of class, which we should be able to do. It just depends on your level of engagement. So the quadratic formula is printed for you on this paper. It's also provided for you on the whiteboard. There's not a lot of formulas that I provide you. I figured this one is, I guess, complicated enough to just give to you. Know that in college, they make you memorize it. I don't know about like 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, but I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, the steps are pretty straightforward. We've done some of these steps before, like making sure the equation is set equal to 0 and written in standard form. So if you don't remember what standard form is, here it is, write it down again. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, so set it equal to 0, make sure it's written in standard form. Is it set equal to 0? Then great, we get to move on to the rest of the steps. So step 2 is to identify your A, B, and C. What's A in this problem? 1. What's B? -5, and C is -36. So the A, B, and C we've identified before. Just remember, A is always the number in front of the x squared. B is always the number in front of the x. C is always the single number. And signs do matter. Always keep the sign that's in front of each term. Once you've identified your A, B, and C, you're going to plug it into your quadratic formula. So I get x equals, and anytime you plug stuff in, what should you use? Parentheses. So negative b, so -5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which again is -5 squared, minus 4ac. So 4 times 1 times -36. All under that square root symbol. And then this is all being divided by 2 times a, which what's a in this problem? 1. So I know some of these operations you can probably do in your head, like the -5 squared or the double negative becoming a positive. I really don't want you to skip this step though, because all the time students do, and then they make silly mistakes. So don't skip this step. Next step, I mean, if you get to use Desmos, you really could plug this entire thing into your calculator. But I know on the Galileo test, it's not Desmos. You can still type stuff in, so it's still easier than the calculator you probably use for the Aspire test. So we're going to have to simplify some of it first. What happens to the -5? Becomes positive. Plus or minus the square root. We're going to put this whole thing underneath in the calculator. So I'm going to put that in the calculator. That's our discriminant, if you remember from the 8-4 lesson. We'll put that in the calculator. Over 2 times 1, which what's 2 times 1? 2. So now let's put the discriminant in the calculator. Oops, not that one. That's our test review. Luckily, I didn't project the test. All right. So type it in exactly how it looks on your paper. Maybe don't put the square root symbol because you'll see why later. All right, but everything that's under the square root symbol, type it in exactly how it looks on your paper with the parentheses and everything. So what number should be under the square root symbol? 169, which we can then take the square root of in the next step. So then I have 5 plus or minus, what's the square root of 169? $13 is correct. Feel free to use a calculator if you don't know. Divided by 2. And then we're solving for both cases. I like using the calculator for that part. So first we do the 5 plus 13 divided by 2. And then what should the other one be? 5 minus 13 divided by 2. And there's my two zeros or roots, solutions, whatever you want to call them. Does that make sense? Any questions? All right, let's try one more together and then I'll give you a couple to try. So then now let's look at number 4. About to scroll down. If you're still writing, write quickly. You will be after, who was after Genesis? Oh, Aiden. So then you'll be after Aiden when he comes back. All right, so number 4. First step on our list says to do what? Set it equal to 0. What's it equal to right now? How do we cancel out a 6x? Good. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So we did it to the right side so that the right side is now 0. On the left, combine like terms. X squared doesn't have a like term. What's 15x minus 6x? Positive 9x. All right, now step 2 says to do what? What is A in this problem? What is B? What is B? And what is C? Good, so sometimes the letters are missing, which we have seen before. So just make sure you're looking at the right placement. If you're missing the x term, then B would be 0. If you're missing the x squared term, then A is 0, which won't happen in quadratic functions, but just so you know. Now, since you've identified your A, B, and C, plug it into your quadratic formula, which is also written on the board. So it's negative B, so negative 9, plus or minus the square root of B squared, 9 squared, minus 4AC. So minus 4 times 1 times 0. All over 2A, which A we said was 1. Any questions on the plugging in step? Again, you don't want to skip that step. In the next step, we can start simplifying some of it. So like the negative 1 times 9, just a negative 9, plus or minus. We'll put the discriminant in the calculator over 2A, so 2 times 1 is 2. So put the discriminant in the calculator, someone, and tell me what you get. 81, good. And that makes sense because 9 squared is 81 minus 4 times 1 times 0, which is 0. So that makes sense. All right, simplify it further. What's the square root of 81? So I get negative 9 plus or minus 9 divided by 2. I like just throwing that in the calculator, although you could get decimals or you could get fractions sometimes. So throw that in your calculator. Negative 9 plus 9 divided by 2 is 0. And then negative 9 minus 9 divided by 2 is negative 9. So just make sure you solve for both cases for that plus or minus. Questions? All right, so then the ones that you guys will be trying will be number 3 and number 7 on the back. I'll give you like 2.5 minutes. So number 3, I'll just project to you. The answer should have been 2 and negative 2. which they just shorten to plus or minus 2, which means the same thing. All right, but you should have identified your A, B, and C. So A is 3, B is 0 because there's no X term at all, and then C is negative 12. Plug it into your formula like so. Any questions about just the plugging in step? All right, make sure if it's a negative number, you have the negative in your parentheses. And then we start simplifying. So like 0, the discriminant right here, what's under the square root symbol, I would just throw that in a calculator because you can do that in Galileo, I'm sure. And under the square root symbol, you should have had 144. Which, what's the square root of 144? 12. So 0 plus or minus 12 just gives me plus or minus 12 over 2 times 3, which is 6. So then I have a positive 12 divided by 6, which is 2, and a negative 12 divided by 6, which is negative 2. So if you wrote it as 2 comma negative 2, that's fine. Or you can write it like this. Just understand this is 2 answers. Questions? All right, 7 I'll do with you because that one should have been a little weird. The correct answer for number 7 is no solutions. And the reason why or actually first let's set it equal to 0. How do you set this one equal to 0? Subtract x on each side, and how do I get rid of a minus 10? You add 10 to each side. So then on the right, it is now 0 because we did our inverse operations. On the left, combine like terms. You would have x squared plus with 7x minus x, 6x, and then plus 10. So then my A in this one is what? My B is, and my C is N. Oh, yeah, because that 10 that we had to add on each side. So then that would change your quadratic formula. So negative B, we have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is 6 squared, minus 4AC. So minus 4 times 1 times 10. All over 2 times A, which coincidentally A is also 1 again. Someone throw that discriminant in the calculator for me and tell me what you get. I've gotten like different answers all day. So. Discriminant is all the stuff under the square root symbol. All right, so you should have had -4 for what's under the square root symbol. Now, is it possible to take the square root of a negative number? No, if you try it, your calculator will probably say error. And if you remember back to the 8-4 lesson, whenever we tested the discriminant and it equaled a negative number, there were automatically no solutions. So in this one, once, or in any of these types, if you find a negative under the square root symbol, you're finished. It's just no solution. You can't take the square root of a negative. Questions there? All right, let's quickly do this number 9. We'll do more examples tomorrow, but let's just get it over with. Irrational solutions. That means that there's going to be what in my answer? Radicals, non-perfect squares. So like in number 9, what's A? What's B? And what's C? So then plug it into your quadratic formula. I get -4 plus or minus the square root of B squared, so 4 squared, minus 4AC. So -4 times 1 times 1. faster than you. All over 2a. So all over 2 times 1. When I simplify this, I have -4 plus or minus. Someone, did you already throw that in the calculator? 12, good. That's what we got last hour too. So is 12 a perfect square? No, but you still need to simplify the radical. So make your factor tree. What two numbers multiply to 12? Good. Are they both prime? So break the 4 down. Good. And when you set up your radical, it's 2 radical 3. So then my answer will look something like this. -4 plus or minus 2 radical 3 divided by 2. And really, I can simplify this further. But if you write this, I'm satisfied with that answer. But really, you could simplify it further because they all have a common multiple of 2. So you can write it like this. -2 plus or minus radical 3. All right, thanks.